Hey folks, Zach Roberts here for another Sunday evening Conversations on the Couch. Oh, that could be the name of this, Conversations on the Couch. Fair warning, today's is a little sad. I am not going to manufacture perky, robust, happy. Today's just not that for me. My thoughts are instead around the word lament or lamentation. If you are a Jew or a Christian, you know that there's, and maybe even if you're not, you know that there's a book of the Bible called Lamentations. But when we have to define that word, do people know what it even means? More importantly, do they know how to do it? Do you know how to lament? And you could say, oh, I lament that I bought that car when it was such a lemon and I shouldn't have bought it. It was an unwise investment. Sure. I think true lamentation, truly to lament something, is passionate. It is energetic grief. I haven't had a death in the family. My house hasn't burned down. I'm not bankrupt. I've not been given some terminal diagnosis or a diagnosis of some disease that's terminal. But there's a heaviness, and I think that there's wisdom in leaning into the heaviness, discussing it, praying through it. I just got off the phone with a friend of mine I used to live with when I was in Connecticut. And he said Christians do not lament well. They don't know how to do it, and they're not encouraged to do it. I believe that. I also believe our churches don't know how to teach it, and so they avoid it. And we're given happy, chirpy songs. You're a good, good father. Yes, God is a good father. There are times when we don't want to sing that. Our hearts are not in that, and we should have the language, the vocabulary, and the space to worship through grief. And maybe on your side of the video, you're saying, well, what do you have to grieve about? True. If we look only at comparisons, by comparison, I live a very good life. I live a very blessed life. But that doesn't diminish the fact that every single one of us has problems, worries, fears, anxieties, and hurts. And I think as we watch the seasons about to change, I always dread seeing the end of summer. I love summer. I really do. I believe in two seasons, summer and Christmas. I stole that from a friend of mine several years ago, but it fits. I really do. Fall's fine, but it lasts for 5 minutes. And then the leaves are on the ground and the trees are bare and they're gray and brown. And then we go into winter, and thankfully I live in a state where winter really doesn't last that long. But still yet, winter and those early dark evenings, they're coming. And maybe in your life, you're already in fall. I don't mean the seasons. You're already in some stage of life that feels like autumn. Maybe you find some enjoyment in it, but there's also that knowledge that the bare trees are coming. The cold winds are coming. Maybe they're already here. How do we lament? I think back when COVID hit, I was living in Connecticut, and I had gone from a certain lifestyle, we all did, a certain lifestyle to overnight, whole new lifestyle, entirely new lifestyle. And for those of us who are churchgoers and Christians, you know that one of the biggest changes was we watched church on TV. Some of you still watch church on TV. I want to say shame on you. If you have some circumstance that really legitimately keeps you from church, I see watching church on TV as a blessing, as a good opportunity, or on Facebook Live or wherever it is. But if you're healthy and able, you should be in church, period. And I feel more emphatic about that with each passing year. I went on a date a few weeks ago, a couple months ago now, and the woman hadn't been in church in 10 years. And I thought, whatever the reason, no, I'm sure her reason, I know what the reason was, I don't want to go into it. The fact is that something kept you from joining corporate worship for 10 years. If I miss corporate worship for 3 weeks, I feel anemic. I don't understand. I've heard it said you can eat at home and get nourished, or you can eat at a family reunion and you get nourished in body, soul, and spirit. Same with corporate worship. You can watch church on TV, or you can go and be with the body of believers and be fed in far more ways. And there's the giving out of worship. It is about God. But worshiping in lamentation is tricky. And during COVID, I felt my church was providing these songs that were happy, chirpy, joyful, joyful. I was not in that headspace or heart space. I was in lament. And I remember a conversation I had with somebody on staff at my church in Connecticut. And I said, I don't want to sing the song of the month. There's no weight to that. I want to sing the songs of the ages that have carried us through world wars and past pandemics. And that's hard. That's hard. At my church right now, we're singing a song. We sang it this morning, Alas, and Did My Savior Bleed? It's a dreary song, and I think it's a good song. It is meant to make us think about the death of Christ. The trick is, with lamentation, especially in 2025, you don't get to just put on black and sit at home and grieve. I don't have servants to carry on life for me. I still have to work. I still have to pay bills and make sure the trash gets to the street and the yard gets mowed and the dishes and it just goes on and on and on, and you don't get to stop. My favorite poem by Robert Frost is Out, Out. And the most gripping part of the poem is at the very end when it says, and they, since they were not the one dead, returned to their affairs. Grief continues even when you have a life to live. You don't get to just give up. And if you look up that poem, it's a powerful poem. You should read it more than once. You wouldn't listen to a song just once, so you shouldn't read a poem just once. And there is a death that takes place in the poem, and there at the very end, they, since they were not the one dead, returned to their affairs. It always breaks my heart, because when somebody does die in your friend group or your family group, you want life to just stand still, and it doesn't. And I began this video today by saying I haven't had a death. I haven't had anything. There's just something, maybe I'm transitioning through my own life into a different stage and age, thinking about things differently, thinking about past experiences, past lives. I don't mean in a reincarnation kind of way. I just mean I lived a different life when I was this age. The famous author Joan Didion said, I've already lost touch with a couple of the people I used to be. Think about that. If the you of today were to meet the you of 1992, would you recognize each other? If not, have you grieved that you left that other person behind? I think a lot about the role that I feel in other people's lives. I think I am active. I'm not a passive person. I'm pretty active. I step in and I'm usually very happy to send the first text or make the first phone call. I'm single still, but it's not because I'm afraid to pick up the phone and call or text or ask someone out. It's just God hasn't provided that yet. Marriage, I mean. So being active in other people's lives, there's a pouring out, giving. And I think one of the things I'm grieving right now is that I don't feel people pouring into my life. I don't say that for pity. I don't say that for you to sit there behind your screen and go, oh, bless his heart. It's not where we're going. It's just one of the things of life that you look around and realize one day, and you have to chew on it and think about, well, what kind of friend am I being, and what are my expectations? I have a really good friend in Connecticut, another one, who used to ask me, anytime I was disappointed, he'd say, are you disappointed because there were realistic expectations that were not met? Or because there were unrealistic expectations that were not met? I'm on a wild goose chase with this talk today, I'm sure. But maybe something resonates with you. Let's put it in a different package. Right now, you're sitting in your home, you're sitting in your car, you're sitting at your office, and you're watching this video, and there is some dullness to your life, some flat ache underneath the surface. And you can't quite put your finger on it, and maybe for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, you've been pushing it aside and saying, it's indigestion. I didn't get a good night's rest. The kids are just going through a lot lately. Whatever. But if you take a moment and actually listen to that ache, push aside the phone calls and the texts, taxes, insurance phone calls, need to wash the car, push all that aside and just listen to the ache. And then lean into the ache. There may be something in there that needs to come out. And it did that for me this week. I had a conversation with somebody, and I just sobbed and cried. And I think it was because I needed to lament something. I haven't quite figured out all the things I'm lamenting, but I needed to just release the tears. And thankfully, this was somebody that I could do that with, and it wasn't terribly uncomfortable, and that person wasn't offended. I wasn't in the middle of a classroom teaching and sobbing. But for you, maybe there's something that you haven't lamented. I think, last week's video was about Mama, and it was joy-filled. I love reminiscing about my grandmother. But there's always a little tiny bit of an ache underneath that of grief and lament because she's not here. If I could bring her back, I wouldn't. She's in heaven and she's far better off than we are. But there's still a little bit of an ache. If you lean into the ache, what do you do then? If you just go out and get rip-roaring drunk, then you haven't done anything. That won't help you lament one iota. I also think that if you just tank up on a big box of ice cream, that's not going to help you either. You have to sit in it. You have to sit in the lament, in the ache, the sadness, the grief. And maybe you're saying, I don't have anything to be sad about. Everything's fine. Everything's just great. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. And if you actually tap into it, for those of us who are Christians, we're called to worship through that. You take that hurt and you lay it before the Lord and you cry your eyes out. Maybe you journal. We are consumers of everything, almost. Be a creator for a moment. Pull out a journal, write, create something. It doesn't need to be pretty. Nobody else is going to read it. Maybe your prayers aren't very pretty. You get down on your knees, and some of you, depending on your age and stage and health, you might say, if I get on my knees, I can't get up again. It's up to you. But maybe you get on your knees and you take the back couch cushion off the couch. Yes, I've done this. And you bury your face in the crevice of your couch. And you get to the point where your prayer is nothing but a great big long sigh, because that's all you can let out and say, Lord, this is all I got. Please hear me. Moral of today's talk: if you've got that little hurt under the surface, that little dull ache, maybe you should stop ignoring it and figure out what's behind it. And maybe you should pray through it. Maybe you should sing through it. I'll close with this. I worked 5 years at a boarding school in Pennsylvania. This was several years ago. And it was a really hard job. And I tell people it's not a miracle that I went to work there. It's a miracle that I went back to work there after the first year, because it was so hard. You live with your students. When they're sick in the middle of the night, you get up. When they break up with the girlfriend, you sit with them. When they've had an argument on the phone with mom, you talk to them. And so my life was totally engrossed into the other lives of these teenage boys. And at the end of that first year, I had a really, really good boss my first year. His name was John. And at the end of that first year, he said, Zach, you need to know what to expect here. He said, at the end of this year, when we have graduation, these students are going to leave. And they are leaving a place that was more home to them than their real home. They've been sleeping 3 feet away from a roommate since they were in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And they're expected to leave everything and everyone they've known here at this school and never come back. And here's the phrase, I've never forgotten it. He said, it's a lot easier for them to leave angry than it is for them to leave sad. That's convicting. There are times in my life when my reaction is anger. And what's really going on is I might be sad over something, and I haven't allowed myself to lament it. When I finally left that school, moved to Connecticut, started grad school, I was walking through Target one day, and you got to think, when I worked at that school, living with the boys, I didn't provide every meal for them. They had a dining hall, and their meals were provided. But I did cook in the cottage quite a lot. And when I moved to Connecticut, I didn't have anybody to cook for. I was walking through Target, and I passed the crock pots and just teared up. Unexplainable. Until I thought about it, and I realized I'm grieving. I'm grieving the end of a life. I'm grieving the end of a season. And so right now I'm grieving something. I'm trying to put my finger on it. Maybe you are too. And if you've recently had an anger outburst, maybe you should check yourself. It might not be anger at all. It might be sadness. Have a good week, but a good week might not mean a happy, chipper week. It might mean a thoughtful, reflective week. Contemplative, there's your word. This week's video brought to you by the word contemplative. Take care of yourself in body, soul, and spirit, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.